Welcome to my 281st video on my work with OO gauge. In this video I'll be looking at Hornby's brand new tooling of the LMS Stanier Black 5. This was announced as the ultimate OO gauge Black 5 back in 2022. The first versions of it finally became available in April 2024 and mine arrived last week. Sadly, spoiler alert, this will not be a happy story. Others have already posted online regarding their troubles with this model, and I'm very sorry to say that my experience has been the same. Ultimately, I was never able to get mine to run on layout tracks at all, so I'm afraid that it's going back. But let me just review the details for what they are worth. I don't buy a great many newly released models. Partially this is because I really enjoy working or playing with older models, especially those with real character of their own, such as Hornby 00. But perhaps a greater factor is that I do focus fairly specifically on modelling LMS operations before the Second World War, around the time that my grandfather's career with that company was coming to an end. And not an awful lot of new models applicable to that particular interest have been coming out recently. But of course the Black 5 sits right in the centre of my area of interest, so when Hornby announced in January 2022 that they would be bringing out a brand new ultimate OO gauge model of the Black 5, I immediately put in a pre-order for it, despite its high price. Now, my ordering process ended up becoming rather complex. I put in my pre-order through British Model Trains in Cambridge, Ontario. Nigel Doran of British Model Trains has always been very helpful to me, and even apart from that, I believe that it's always good to support our local dealers whenever possible. However, whilst we were waiting for the new Hornby Black 5 to come out, the Canadian importer for Hornby went out of business. My order had been put in through that importer, so it basically disappeared. Nigel tried to get some sort of useful response out of the main Hornby sales department, but I gather that so far he's failed to get any useful response re future Hornby sales in Canada. So he managed to get me this model through his ordering arrangements with GaugeMaster. This still leaves many questions re the future of Hornby sales in Canada unanswered. For example, is there any chance that Hornby will honour warranty arrangements regarding all of the new Hornby stock that Nigel has on hand or has recently sold, that was bought through the now defunct importer? In any case, I got my new Black 5 not long after the model first became available in the UK, for a price in Canadian dollars equivalent to just under £208, plus Canadian sales tax, of course. The RRP on Hornby's site for this model is now £229.99, i.e. a penny under £230. This makes it definitely one of the most expensive new locomotive models that I've ever bought. Is it worth it? Well, of course you have to consider what else you should be spending your money on. This model does have quite a number of innovative features, in addition to having a level of detail in the modelling beyond anything seen in previous OO gauge versions of the Black 5. So if the model actually ran okay, I wouldn't really complain too much about the price. On the other hand, I can't help seeing it as insupportable to pay over $400 for a model that won't run at all on track, so that's why it's going back. Of course, I could take it apart and try to fix the most critical problems, but, well, Hornby's made-in-China models have just got increasingly fiddly and obnoxious to work on, and this looks to be no exception, and I really don't feel that I want to struggle with trying to fix major problems with such a model when I've just paid a high price to purchase it as a new item. Here's my new Black 5 as it arrived, in Hornby's latest style of packaging, which I think is pretty good. Nice looking boxes with good illustrations and very solid protection of the model. Here's the side of that box with some information on the prototype history and a drawing. Here's a close-up of that drawing. The drawing is dated 2024, so presumably it's something done for the box rather than an initial design drawing. Here's the end of the box showing the version that I got. I believe this is essentially the only version that's been released so far. Other versions are supposed to be coming in several versions of BR livery and also options fitted with DCC and sound, and with Hornby's new synchronized steam/smoke generator. Even if other versions had been available, I would have wanted the version in LMS livery with no DCC and no smoke steam generator. I don't at all fancy the idea of trying to put distilled water into an electric Loco model and then presumably trying to take the remaining water out so that the model can be put away afterwards. The new Hornby boxes are quite tough to open. They're solidly made and the lids fit tightly, so you're not just going to be able to get hold of the lid and pull it off. You basically have to force the box open a bit at a time at each end, wiggling it like that until the lid comes off. Inside the box, the model is in a plastic block of ice surrounded by black foam. Here I've removed the top layer of the black foam. Here's a closer view of the model still in its packaging. There was a single sheet of folded instructions in the bottom of the box. Here's one side of that. Here's a close view of the general instructions for the model. The other side of the sheet deals with DCC fitting and fitting of additional detail parts. The model has a 21-pin DCC socket in the tender, and DCC fitting is quite standard, though I don't do that. Painted crew figures are supplied. There are quite a few additional detail parts, including things rarely seen on 00 gauge models, such as a tablet catcher for the cab side and 2 different styles of snow plough that may be fitted to the front of the Loco. The model also comes with light-up lamps, and supposedly the lamp code can be changed. Lamps can be fitted in any of the standard positions on the front of the Loco, and in the positions where a lamp is not to be fitted, a blanking piece with a lamp bracket can be fitted. A key to standard Loco head codes is provided in the instructions, which is a nice touch. I didn't attempt to fiddle with the lamp-changing business. I would have tried that later after running in, if I had ever actually managed to run the model in. Here's the detail bag. Quite a lot of things in there, and some of them, such as the lamp bracket blanks, really tiny. Since the details were just in a Ziploc bag, I took them out to photograph them. There's an optional NEM coupling for the front, a chain-link coupling for the front buffer beam, front steps, cylinder drain cocks and Loco brake rigging gear, all of those fairly standard items. Nicely painted crew figures are included. The 2 different styles of snow plough are at left here. I'm a bit dubious as to how functional the lamp-changing arrangement would be, but as I say, I didn't get round to trying that. Here's the model still in its block of ice, but with the covering piece of protective soft plastic sheet removed. And here's the model out of the packaging. Here's the other side. Definitely a very detailed model. The finish is good as well, generally a nice satin but with a matte effect on the smoke box. This model comes with Hornby's new way of coupling Loco and tender, a snap-in plug arrangement which is supposed to provide both electrical connection and physical coupling. This, it seems, is a major design weakness. The basic design idea here was a very good one. Simplify the coupling and separation of Loco and tender, and make all necessary electrical connections between Loco and tender without the need for external wires. Unfortunately, the way this idea has been implemented doesn't seem to be at all sound. Mine never worked properly, and apparently this was not just a one-off fluke, as several other people have reported similar problems. And this is right out of the box. I suspect problems with this connection arrangement are only going to get worse over the life of the model. Mine worked a bit at first before giving up entirely, and other people seem to have had similar results. Here's a close-up of the drive and valve gear, very nicely modelled, although the rods look a bit too shiny for me. Here's a view of the other side of the Loco. The boiler is plastic, but the running plate is die-cast. Even though die-cast, the running plate is not entirely straight, but the deviation is minor and wouldn't really bother me if it wasn't for the model's other problems. Here you can see more of the detail around the side of the cab. The cab interior is painted tan. Here's the top of the tender with the coal load. Sorry, it's a bit out of focus. Here are the safety valves and the whistle. The turned metal safety valves look nice. The plastic whistle is acceptable, I suppose. Here's the front of the smoke box, as it came with 2 lamps fitted. These lamps will light up when the model is given forward power. As mentioned, supposedly these lamps can be removed and fitted in other positions, with blanking brackets fitted in the unused positions. I bet that would be challenging to do, but as I say, I didn't get round to trying. Here's the back of the tender, also with a lamp fitted. This lamp lights up red when the Loco is given forward power and white when reverse power is applied. I weighed the model. Loco and tender weighed 360 grams altogether, reasonably substantial but not near the top of the heavy weight class. I tried the model on my test track. It didn't move at all, no matter how much power I applied. The lights did come on when power was applied, so clearly some electrical pickup was happening. The backlight did come on as well, but it doesn't show in this flash picture. Also, the firebox glow came on when power was applied. I took this picture without flash to make the glow visible. Here you can see the Loco to tender connection disconnected. When the model arrived, Loco and tender were connected. The little round bit protruding from the Loco side snaps into the round hole in the tender side, and that creates a firm enough hold that the Loco pulls the tender fine. But then electrical connection is supposed to be made by flat contacts pressing against each other, and that doesn't seem to work at all reliably. I cleaned the exposed contacts with electrical contact cleaner on a cotton bud. This maybe made things work a little better briefly, but then it just got harder and harder to persuade the motor to run at all. I could initially get the motor to run in a sponge some of the time if things were angled just right. Well, I'm pretty much having a lot of problems with this new Hornby Black 5. Now that I've cleaned the contacts between the Loco and the tender, it will run if I apply power to the tender wheels. Not the middle ones, there's no pickups on it, but the front or back tender wheels, it will run. And if I apply to whatever the heck is that, that's the right-hand side tender and the Loco, it will run. But if I shift the tender power to the left side and then go for the left Loco wheels, I get nothing. So the left Loco wheel pickup, or right, it's upside down. I mean, it would be right side when it's the right way up. The right side local pickup doesn't work. The tender does. See, if I touch the tender pickups there, that works. Famous last words, but I get nothing. So for some reason the right-hand Loco pickups are not working. That, I think, is a separate issue from the drawbar not working. I mean, basically, because I think the drawbar connection's got to be working for it to work as much as it does now, but I still can't get those right-hand Loco pickups to work. Well, on the rolling road, it basically doesn't work unless I push. If I push tender and Loco apart, then it works, but only if I push Loco and tender apart. So that thing is clearly making hopelessly poor connection. For what it's worth, it will also run on the rolling road if I twist the tender slightly to one side, but I don't know what's going on. Not twisting it to the other side doesn't work, but twisting it to that side works. But I've cleaned the contacts on both sides of that thing, and I've cleaned them both now, but it still doesn't work. Well, now it's finally running on the rolling road. You're better off without that light on, aren't you? It's actually running on the rolling road now. Oops. Turning it up, not down. It's running on the rolling road without me touching it, but it's, you know, it's like... it's just... if you get that connection at just the right angle, it might work, but otherwise it doesn't. So how we're ever going to get the thing to run on track, I don't know. I did try the model on both Hornby and Bachmann track, but I could never get it to run on either, so no actual running video here, sadly. Indeed, the problems seemed to just get worse as I continued trying, until eventually I couldn't get the motor to run at all, even when I fiddled with the tender, although the lights still came on when power was applied. Generally, if I buy models and they have running problems, I just disassemble the model and fix the problems. But I really don't feel like trying to struggle with a horribly fiddly Hornby China model when I've just paid full price for it. So this model is actually going back. I don't believe I've ever returned a model before, but it just seems the sensible thing to do in this case. Gauge Master have said that I can return the model for either a refund or a replacement. If I asked for a replacement, what are the odds that it would actually work? I really don't know. All rather sad and frustrating, but what can you do? This whole business has left me feeling very dubious about the whole idea of buying newly issued, highly complex models.